My roommate wants me to confess. Well, here it is. A lot's happened. I need to confess. The police are already on their way, so I guess I should start today at its beginning. I slept for a while. The seats in the 2003 Civic can recline totally flat, and it's not too uncomfortable unless you haven't showered in a couple days and have a safari land holster inside your waistband, digging a Glock into your nuts. Still, I must have caught some sleep because next thing I knew, dawn was streaming in through the windshield. Somewhere in the night, on the 152, I'd passed into Oklahoma. It was strange, but when you cross into another state, it seems like the scenery always changes, don't it? The dusty, arid, endless expanses of Texas had given way to a new greenness, healthy grass and stands and coppices of live oak, all under a beautiful virgin sky. Under the impression I was heading towards my death, I sat for a long while, just taking in that golden majesty that struck the scattered clouds, burnishing them to a silver gleam. I love that sunrise. It still might be the last I see. Eventually, I knew I had to go on. It was a long drive. I turned north at a nameless crossroad onto the 283. I stopped in Cheyenne for my last breakfast as a free man. A little diner, can't even remember the name. I was stressed. Crossing state lines as a felon concealed carrying a gun does that to you. I was tired, the weight of the last few days weighing on my back, heavy as the cross. I had a breakfast burrito and a sweet tea. It was pretty good considering the state I was in. This part of Oklahoma, the Black Kettle National Grassland, wasn't new to me. I've driven these roads once before. You might wonder why I'm driving away, why I'm not back, when I intend to confront Mike. Well, I think he'll meet me where I'm headed. I think he knows the place. And I know he knows what I've done. North, then east, from Cheyenne. There's a nameless town just there. Go a little past, and an unpaved road cuts north to south. Take it and head north a few miles. And there it was. The whole grassland is a tangle of brush, thickets of trees, and a few hills breaking sightlines. On a hill not too far left of the road, there stands a lone oak, and buried under its twisted branches is a man that was named Peter. Mike was there, as I knew he would be, clad in jeans and a leather jacket, despite the oppressive heat that hit me when I opened the door. His face I cannot describe. It was beyond imagining or comprehension. I approached as casually as I could, trying to give away nothing through my body language that conveyed the massive violence I was about to inflict. 50 feet. I walked closer. 30 feet. Closer still. 10 feet. I stopped. He said nothing. He stood still, above a shallow grave I now intended that he would share with Peter. My right foot went back, hands came up to my side, left hand whipped up my shirt, right wrapped around the gun. Both my hands met, center chest, high. A perfect grip. I pushed the gun out, forwards, sights aligned in my right eye. The drawn had taken less than a second. Mike had no time to react, but he didn't try to. The rounds rang out across the prairie. 1, 2, 3. The gun kicked hard. 10 millimeters always kicks harder than you think. Brass leapt from the slide and tumbled to my right. 4, 5, 6, 7. Shooting without ear protection, even out in the open, feels shit, like getting kicked in both sides of the head at once, rattling your brain. It didn't register at first. I was a good shooter, even if I hadn't done it in nearly a decade. You don't lose the skill, only some polish. Yet at 10 feet, even a child would land most of their shots. And Mike still stood before me, unflinching, unchanged. Where the bullets went, I have no idea. But they didn't touch the average-looking man with the burning eyes before me. I stood, just stood, gun still raised, rounds left in the magazine. But I knew it was pointless. My heart had sank as low as it could already as soon as I saw him from the car. All I felt then was numb, completely drained of all emotion. It's like when you're a kid trying every trick in the book to get out of school and avoid a test. When you fake being sick, try and start a fight, shout a bunch of swears and slurs, try and run out the classroom. But your teacher brings you back, sits you down at your desk, and you just look at the sheet, knowing that there's no way out, no escape. Like that, but 1,000 times stronger. knowing you've lost. I'd lost a long time ago, before Mike moved in, before I left home, before I buried Antoine, before the first time I'd stolen the exact gun clasped in my hands, before I'd bought the heroin for my girlfriend. I had lost, and Mike had won. I slackened my arms, gun hanging uselessly from my hand. I stepped forward into a normal pose, one parallel yet somehow inferior to his. I still couldn't meet his eyes, couldn't feel known. But he must have known me anyway. Look at me, his voice rang out. It was alien. It was inhuman, that voice. So balanced, so unfeeling, so perfect. There was no way to resist. My eyes pulled themselves up, with no input from me. I looked him in the eye and he strode forward over the grave. As he saw me and understood me, so too did I know him. But I could never understand the being before me. He who had led shining armies when the world was young, who had seen endless and timeless evils and vanquished them all. He who weighed souls and bore justice on levels so cosmic and inhuman. He who found my guilt as it weighed down my wretched soul. Peter waits below for trumpets and voices from above. Is that fair? I knew it wasn't. I wanted to protest, say that the world is, by nature, unfair. There are plans far larger than any of you. It is not your place to take a life. No matter your reason, I fell to my knees before him. What I had done to Peter, in my head, it had just been a twist of fate, an accident. Are you worthy of forgiveness? Are you responsible enough to admit you're failing? Number. I wasn't. All my life, I'd refused to make choices. I'd hid behind my sister, behind addiction. I'd never once really taken responsibility for anything. Hell, I'd basically forced Jen to find my apartment for me, and she was the one who'd gotten me hired in the first place. Screw you! Came out of my mouth before I realized I spoke. I was sick of the shame, the guilt. Michael seemed almost to grow, to flex, and to wax brighter, despite not moving. I've cast down greater snakes than you. Just confess, and this can end. I was still locked by his gaze, his ancient and all-seeing eyes. He wanted me to give a confession, an admission of guilt, for me to stop hiding, to take responsibly for once in my wretched, pathetic life. Well, here it is. It was September 24th, 2017. My girlfriend Lily and I were skipping school as usual. I'd stolen about $200 out of my dad's wallet, and we were heading for the haunt of our local dealer. It was our normal routine, if the routine of a heroin addict can ever be called normal. Suffice to say, we got high. Shooting up in her bedroom, in her empty house. We both got high. We both passed out. Only I woke up. Cold and dead, covered in her own shit and vomit. I left her there. She wasn't found until her parents came home the next day, and whilst the police wanted to talk to me, I wasn't anywhere to be found. Because I was in Oklahoma. I'd called my drug dealer late, once I'd gotten my brain back together after the heroin and Lily's death. I'd pretended she was still alive, that she wanted more, that she'd suck him off for it. He laughed down the phone, and I told him to meet me up north of town. Near her place, I'd lied. She lives north of town, and we're way too high to drive into Amarillo. I'd been certain he'd believe me. I'd already been to my father's place, grabbed his Glock 20, and was waiting by my car. At 11:53 p.m., a car, a 13 Camry, pulled up. I didn't hesitate in the darkness, didn't even try and confirm my target. 5 rounds in the chest, 2 in the head. I think it's fair to say, most people haven't seen what 10mm self-defense hollow point rounds do to a human body. The entry wounds look normal, but it blasts chunks out of the exit. It can shatter bones, and if it hits you in the head, everything is coming out the back. So Peter was there, a bloody, malformed mess leaking into the desert, and not my drug dealer. Just a random passerby, perhaps a concerned middle-aged man, stopping to see if he could help teens stranded in the desert. I stuffed most of him in a suitcase I'd bought, the big one I'd used when I got kicked out the house. I left his car there, still idling as I took off into the dark with my grim cargo. I sped blindly down the roads, panicking, lights off. I would be surprised I remembered the route, except that white-knuckled drive is seared into my memory. By the time I'd finished burying Peter, it was nearly midday. I cleaned myself up with wet wipes. I used his own cash to get lunch, to get a room at a motel. Then I drove back home and pretended nothing had happened. On the news, I heard of a single father, wife passed away, working 2 jobs to support 2 young daughters, who disappeared on his way home one night. I heard how his car had been found, evidence at the scene leading the missing persons case to be upgraded to a homicide investigation. I didn't have to pretend to be crushed when Jen told me they'd found Lily. Some part of me must have still been hoping. That day crushed me. After I committed my murder and buried that father of 2 in a shallow grave beneath that oak tree, I spent years getting high. I stole from Jen, probably thousands. I stole from her girlfriends too, from my parents' house as well, and probably from whatever friends I still had. My father hadn't always been a monster. I remember our first hunting trip, how he'd been gruff and quiet, but told me how proud he was when I put that hog down. My mother had never said no to me, always showering me with love. We'd spend Saturdays baking cookies together. It was me that destroyed them. I fell harder and harder, got into bad crowds, did drugs, started getting loud and threatening at home. There's only so long you can worry about a person, try to help them before you just become numb to it. I'd sucked every ounce of goodwill and love they'd ever had out of them years before they kicked me out, leaving them with souls turned to stone. Jen had to nurse and baby me through all that shit, and all the while I never did a single thing for anyone, not even myself. It was Jen who made me go to rehab a couple of times. It was Jen who'd arranged and paid for my counseling. It was Jen who'd got me the interview at Whataburger. I am nothing but a parasite, a leech. All my life I have done nothing but take, take, take. I've taken all the joy from my parents, taken all the time and love my sister ever had, and I've taken a father from his little girls. Michael heard this. I screamed it at him, not so neat or so thought through. He heard and he said nothing. He just watched, and I felt small beneath his eternal, immortal sight. So then I took out my phone. The 911 operator I got sounded like an older lady. She had a kind voice, and she listened very patiently to my confession as I filled in the blanks in an 8 or 9-year-old murder case. Then she informed me that the police were on their way, that they would be armed, that I should make no sudden movements, and that they would be with me in about an hour. And Michael was gone. So here I am. After a life of taking, for once I've given. One measly confession from a coward. This was all I had to give, so I figured I'd give it out here too. Thanks to anyone who stuck with the story. Not to get all cliche, but it looks like the real monster was me all along. Typical, ain't it? I can hear the sirens now. I still have the chance to pussy out, or to go out in a blaze of fire. I have a gun, 2.5 mags. Well, keep your eyes on the news tomorrow. I guess you'll find out.